Most parents wait for loud behaviors, big problems, or obvious struggles to appear before they begin worrying about their child's development. But the truth is, developmental delays rarely show up in the loud moments. They hide in the quiet ones. They hide in the routines. They hide in the small, everyday interactions that don't look unusual at all until you know what to look for. Welcome to this deep dive into the 10 hidden signs of developmental delays that most parents never notice. These signs are subtle, gentle, and easily overlooked, especially if you're a new parent, a busy parent, or someone who assumes every child simply grows at their own pace. While that is true to a degree, early childhood development also follows predictable patterns. And when certain patterns don't show up, that absence can reveal more than any dramatic behavior ever could. Today, we're going to explore the hidden red flags that pediatricians, teachers, and even experienced parents often miss. We'll look at the science behind early development, the emotional cues children give us long before they have words, and the small behaviors that actually matter far more than the big ones. Remember, this video is not about diagnosing, labeling, or worrying unnecessarily. It's about understanding. It's about awareness. Because when parents understand the early signs, they can support their child long before the gap widens. Early understanding leads to early action, and early action creates lifelong impact. So, let's begin. The hidden signs parents miss. When people think of developmental delays, they imagine dramatic signs. A child not speaking at all, constant tantrums, or obvious struggles to occur before they begin worrying about their child's development. But the truth is, developmental delays rarely show up in the loud moments. They hide in the quiet ones. They hide in the routines. They hide in the small, everyday interactions that don't look unusual at all until you know what to look for. Pointing is one of the most powerful developmental milestones. It's not just a gesture, it's a sign of communication, intelligence, and social thinking. By 9 to 12 months, babies usually point to show you something interesting, to ask for something, or to draw your attention towards something exciting. When a child doesn't point, doesn't reach towards things with intent, or doesn't gesture up, give, look, or help, it may be a subtle early indicator of communication delays. Many parents miss this sign because their child may express needs in other ways, crying, pulling the parent's hand, or staring at the desired object. These work temporarily, but they bypass the social building steps that prepare a child for speech. A child who does not point may struggle with using gestures to communicate, understanding shared experiences, initiating interaction, learning the back-and-forth rhythm of conversation. Parents may think, my baby is just quiet, or they are shy, or maybe they're just independent. But lack of pointing is one of the strongest early red flags for communication delays, including language disorders and social communication differences. Joint attention is when a child looks at something and then looks back at you to share the moment. For example, if you point at a bird and your child looks at the bird, then looks back at you to smile or react, that's joint attention. If they only look at the object but never check back with you, something is missing. Parents often mistake this for good focus, independence, deep engagement. But healthy development includes shared engagement, not just solitary focus. Children learn language, emotions, and social thinking through these micro moments of shared connection. When joint attention is delayed, children may later struggle with social communication, following directions, building relationships, understanding group play. This sign is extremely easy to miss because the child seems content, but it's one of the most important red flags to look for. Many parents see a toddler who plays alone quietly and think, wow, my child is so good, they don't cause trouble. But toddlers aren't designed to be independent yet. They are wired to check in, bring toys to show you, seek your reaction, and share moments of excitement. When a child never looks up during play, never tries to show you something, never seeks connection, it could indicate a developmental difference. This sign is especially misunderstood in cultures where quiet children are seen as perfect, easy, or smart. But early independence can sometimes be the opposite, a lack of instinctive social connection. Children who avoid social check-ins often struggle later with play skills, friendships, emotional sharing, and communication. Again, this sign hides in plain sight. Sensory differences are often misunderstood as personality traits. A child who dislikes touching grass, certain food textures, loud environments, bright lights, new clothing materials, messy play like paint or foam, may be avoiding sensory input because they are overwhelmed, not because they are picky or fragile. Some parents see this as just a preference, or they don't like to get dirty. But sensory avoidance can be an early sign of sensory processing differences. These differences may impact feeding, learning, social play, and emotional regulation. Children who are overwhelmed by sensory input often withdraw, avoid participation, or have meltdowns during transitions. Imitation is the foundation of learning. Babies imitate long before they speak. Smiles, claps, waving, babbling. When imitation is missing, parents may assume their child is simply observing quietly. But imitation is one of the strongest predictors of language development. A child who does not imitate may struggle later with speech, pretend play, social skills, and interactive learning. For example, you clap, the child does nothing. You wave, the child stares. You make silly sounds, the child doesn't mimic. This subtle sign tells us the child might not be naturally wired to copy social cues, which can impact their communication growth. Some toddlers struggle deeply when switching from one activity to another. This might look like crying, freezing, refusing to move, meltdown during routines, becoming extremely upset with changes. Parents often think their child is stubborn or dramatic, but difficulty transitioning is usually neurological, not behavioral. It reveals how the child's brain handles change, unpredictability, and shifting attention. Children with developmental delays or sensory differences often need more time, more preparation, and more patience during transitions. Repetitive play is another subtle sign parents overlook because it looks calm and harmless. Many toddlers line up toys, sort objects, stack things, or spin wheels occasionally. That's normal. But when the child does it for long periods, prefers it over everything else, becomes distressed if interrupted, avoids imaginative play, ignores social interaction, it may be a sign they are using repetition to regulate themselves. Repetitive play can be calming, predictable, and comforting, but it may also indicate developmental differences. When a child responds to their name sometimes, but not always, parents may assume they're busy, they're in their own world, they hear selectively. But inconsistent response to name is a major early sign of communication delays. Children are naturally tuned to their parents' voices. When that tuning is weak or inconsistent, it often means there are differences in how they process sound, attention, or social cues. This sign is often misinterpreted as stubbornness or personality. Motor delays and social differences often appear together. A child might be late to walk, late to climb, late to crawl, unsteady, fearful of movement. At the same time, they may avoid eye contact, gestures, or social interaction. Many parents treat motor delays separately, but the combination of motor plus social differences is an important red flag worth monitoring. This may be the most overlooked sign of all. A child grabs your hand, pulls you towards something, and places your hand on the object they want. Parents assume they want help. They're showing me what they need. How smart! They bring me to it. But hand leading replaces communication. It bypasses pointing, gesturing, eye contact, vocalizing. It is a nonverbal way of saying, "You do it for me," instead of, "I'll communicate what I want." Hand leading is one of the strongest indicators that a child is relying on you to interpret their needs instead of learning communication skills. If you noticed one or more of these signs in your child, remember, you did not fail. You did not miss something on purpose, and your child is not broken. Early developmental differences are incredibly common. Millions of children around the world experience them. What matters is what you do next. Here's what developmental experts recommend. Start observing patterns. Write down what you see, how often it happens, and in what situations. Compare across settings. Does your child act the same way at daycare, at home, outside, with relatives? Talk to your pediatrician. It's not about diagnosing. It's about understanding your child's needs. Request a developmental screening. Most countries offer free or low-cost early intervention programs. Early screening is life-changing. It gives clarity, guidance, and targeted support. Support your child at home. Use gestures, slow communication, simple routines, and encourage shared play. These tiny actions compound over time. The earlier a developmental delay is understood, the easier it is to support the child. Early intervention is not about fixing, it is about empowering the child.